North Vancouver, British Columbia. A picturesque corner of BC's Lower Mainland. For decades, a genteel and quiet suburb. Recently, a place to settle down for many newcomers to Canada. But for one group of Indo-Canadians, it's not so much where they choose to be, as where they believe they must be. Few may know it, but in recent years, North Vancouver has been the location for secretive gatherings of true believers, preparing for the end of the world. They come together in meetings like this for spiritual growth and to train their minds, but also to communicate with the dead and learn the rules they must follow in order to be saved by UFOs from the imminent apocalypse.
You needed to abide, you needed to follow these rules, and it was for your own good, because if you didn't do it, something terrible would happen.
For the group in North Vancouver and others like it overseas, they believe the person who can help them survive is this man, Shiamak Davar. You may not have heard of him, but for tens of millions of Indians at home and abroad, he's a household name. A man of many talents, the pop star who's put his unique stamp on Bollywood movies with the lavish choreography and North American dance moves captured on his website. Shiamak Davar travels in the international circle of celebrity, socializing with others from Stevie Wonder and Stephen Harper to Bill Clinton and Sting. And Davar also is a global businessman, selling his signature style to students at his dance schools around the world, including Canada. In this TV appearance, he claims credit for bringing modern dance into the mainstream.
People at that time, I remember saying, I will never send my child to your class because I don't want my child to grow up a pansy. The boys. And the girls who were sent to class, the mothers would say that, look, if you go to dance classes, I'm telling you again, no one will marry you. So you're wearing these very tight clothes. You're wearing these very revealing things. Now the same people today send their kids to my classes.
One of his students was Jimmy Mystery, who signed up to learn to dance Shiamak style at his original school in Mumbai, India. Mystery says he arrived a starstruck kid, eager to please the entertainment legend.
He knew my name, he knew who I was. He would say things like, keep rehearsing, keep doing well, and one day you'll dance for me.
The best and brightest students would be chosen to perform with Davar's traveling dance company. Jimmy Mystery was selected for that troupe around the year 2000. Then still a teenager, it was a dream come true.
It was the whole package, because they used to do shows and presentations at the end of each semester, as they called it, a 3-month course. And it looked great. You know, there were young dancers, girls, guys, physically fit. It was fairly attractive as a package where, you know, if you had a sort of inkling, that's what you wanted to do.
Percy Shroff was also a teen when he began studying with Davar. With talent and ambition, he soon shot to the top of his class.
It was only me and another boy from my particular class had been chosen. And I was very excited, and he picked us out. And shortly after that, he asked me to dance in his other dance shows as well.
Being chosen for Davar's dance company meant performing alongside him. But Shroff says the star choreographer also embraced the dancers socially, introducing them to his world off stage.
He would talk to me a lot. He would take me out after rehearsals for dinners, restaurants, sometimes with other dancers, sometimes I was alone. And he would chat with me much more and tell me personal things about himself.
This young woman was starstruck too. She also took Davar's classes and was asked to join his performing company. But then there were doubts. She asked not to be identified because she still has friends in the company.
When you talk about Shiamak, you think that he's such a celebrated choreographer. He's a progressive mind. He's open about everything. But that was not the case.
She says she became increasingly uncomfortable when she saw a fellow dancer accept Shiamak Davar's spiritual teachings, which ostensibly came straight from the dead.
He said, no, we haven't seen him talk to a spirit, but we believe him that he does. And I was like, don't you ever question him? It's like, no, we believe in whatever he says. So things like that are really bizarre for me. I don't understand it, that how can you just blindly believe someone?
As she and others would soon discover, there was another dimension to their mentor Shiamak Davar that eventually would embroil many of their lives too. It's a belief system based on books entitled The Laws of the Spirit World. Books compiled by this woman, whom Davar had sought out as a mentor in India. Known as Khorshadanti, her spiritual teachings began after 2 sons died in a car crash. She believed they were communicating telepathically from beyond the grave, sending her words to live by, as she said in this promotional video.
That they reached me after that death and guided me to lead my life in a spiritual way.
She called her group VRRP, incorporating her dead son's initials. Shiamak Davar became her follower. Their relationship so close, she wanted him to take over as custodian of VRRP when she died in 2007. Here he describes her on one of the group's official videos.
Her presence is always with us because, she will make sure that she will let you know she's there. And it's quite uncanny how alive she is now.
Shiamak Davar's spiritual beliefs were a constant influence for dancers like Jimmy Mistry.
When did VRRP, the spiritual life, become part of this?
It was always there in the background, because the second you introduce the Shiamak, he doesn't hide it. It's sort of in plain view with everything that he says, or if he's advising you on something. That's what he brings to the table with his knowledge.
But if they all knew about VRRP, only a select few would be judged special enough to learn the truth about surviving the end of the world.
They see that who has the potential to get into VRRP. And VRRP again is limited to their inner circle.
When we come back, what brought Shiamak Davar and his fellow believers to Vancouver, BC? Nothing less than Armageddon.
The Earth's axis will shift, causing widespread cataclysms, earthquakes, fires, floods, tidal waves, and a large portion of the physical land will go under the ocean.
Vancouver, British Columbia, April 2013. Bollywood's biggest stars take the stage at the BC Place Stadium, celebrating the Indian movie industry with their Canadian fans, all at the behest of their friend and global dancing superstar, Shiamak Davar. It's the climax of the decade Davar spent building his artistic and spiritual foothold in Canada, earning high praise from BC's Premier.
My friend Shiamak is an example of what makes this province great.
And Shiamak Davar isn't shy about using that celebrity status to promote his spiritual side, and the book it's based on.
And I read your book, sir, like respect. I gave it to my friend, she said respect. So it's like a cascade effect.
It's the best book in the world. It's called The Laws of the Spirit World.
Yes.
You have to see it.
There's no question Shiamak Davar is a global personality, internationally known as a dancer and choreographer. His name on one of the world's largest dance schools. But he's also much more than that. A leader of a spiritual group preparing for the end of the world, when the chosen few will survive, but only if they're located in a predetermined safe zone. For example, North Vancouver, British Columbia. It's all laid out here in the VRRP Bible, called Laws of the Spirit World, copyrighted by Davar himself, which specifies safe places for Armageddon, locations with positive vibrations in parts of Canada, New Zealand, and Australia. About a decade and a half ago, Shiamak Davar and others began moving to these 10 square blocks in North Vancouver. They left behind lives in India because of messages ostensibly received from the spirit world telling them to. And once the group settled in Canada, VRRP meetings and rituals enveloped their lives. Believers light homemade lamps to ward off negativity and what they call black magic. Former members say it wasn't long before VRRP was not only concerned about their positive frame of mind, but also about controlling their lives. Believers say you can look deeply into someone's eyes to assess whether their so-called spiritual levels are rising or falling. Crucially at stake, could they survive the end of the world?
Personally, there were times in my life when I was told that I was falling. It was something that you really dreaded, because as you sort of got immersed in this group culture, a lot of how you saw yourself was based on these realms that were assigned to you. So if you were 5, whatever, and you were doing well, then you believed you were doing well. And if somebody told you you're falling, you're having negative thoughts, then that's how you perceived yourself.
And Davar's ability to auto-write, in other words, to receive and transcribe advice from the dead, allows him to give followers spiritual guidance. One of the most devoted in the group, who'd risen through the ranks, eventually becoming a senior member of VRRP in Vancouver, was Percy Shroff.
So these are messages coming from the afterlife, essentially.
That's right.
Messages about what? Saying what?
Anything and everything. It was messages about your day-to-day life. It could be a message out of the blue that I was given very often. It could be a message about my spiritual levels. It could be a message about where I was going wrong, about everything. My parents, my family, about my friends. It could be anything to do with me.
Where to eat, where to live, whether or not to travel. They were rules supposedly inspired by telepathic messages from powerful spirits in the afterlife. Among the believers who followed the group to Vancouver was a former dancer from Shiamak's troupe. She asked us to hide her identity. She remembers when she was first drawn into the group and how its beliefs then extended to every part of her life.
Even from marriage point of view, you were told who to marry, when to marry. What I found strange was that the same people that you were encouraged to form a relationship with at one time, you would then be encouraged to break up with after the relationship had been formed, because either it was a bad influence, they were not improving, it was suddenly discovered they were doing black magic.
According to VRRP, the world is filled with negative energy, which will lead to an apocalypse that only the righteous will survive.
They claim that the Earth's axis will shift, causing widespread cataclysms, earthquakes, fires, floods, tidal waves, and a large portion of the physical land will go under the ocean. New land will come up, and a very small percentage of the world's population will survive. And yes, what the basis of your survival depends on how good a person you are and their location.
According to the teachings, only the good will survive because they'll be rescued from those safe zones and beamed up to spacecraft.
If you are good, you're on a good level, you will be saved because UFOs would come down, and even if you were under rubble or you were at a loss, the good souls that were coming in the UFOs would see you wherever you are and beam you up from no matter where. Once you are up and you have the training, you are placed down to survive again and start fresh.
For many of his followers, Shiamak Davar was the central figure in their lives for years. On stage, their mentor and employer. Behind the scenes, their spiritual leader, even the person who might determine whether they would survive the end of the world. But according to Percy and Jimmy, for them, Davar was something else. Jimmy Mystery maintains Davar used his influence as dance mentor and spiritual leader to try and seduce him.
So if you're asking for a progression, it was from the point of where it would just be tickling and stroking to then kissing and touching, and was always done in a manner where it was made to be portrayed as non-sexual. So it would be comments as, hey, you know, if you're putting my hand here or putting my hand there, look, I'm not getting aroused.
In lawsuits filed with BC's Supreme Court last year, Jimmy Mystery and Percy Shroff made their break with Shiamak Davar, with allegations of sexual grooming and sexual harassment and spiritual control by him over their lives. Percy Shroff alleges a pattern of harassment that went on for years.
He would touch me a lot, my back, my shoulders, my thighs, my stomach, chest. And he would make it very clear that he wanted me to reciprocate. And because I wasn't reciprocating, he would make me feel very bad about it. To a point when I finally did give in and believed that I needed to reciprocate because he was such a nice and great person.
And how did that make you feel?
You mean after the sexual act?
Afterwards.
Horrible. I felt horrible inside. And looking back now, I see that it took me a long time to get over it, subconsciously.
Shiamak Davar declined our request for an interview on camera. Through a spokesman, he expressed his total rejection of the allegations, which he calls completely false. Specifically, in his legal response, Davar says he never had inappropriate sexual relations with any members of the dance company. He denies being a controlling figure and says each VRRP member is at liberty to make their own decisions. He says he is not the leader of VRRP. Davar remains an international star who's proud of all he's accomplished, especially, he says, making the world of dance accessible to everyone. As for the dancers, Jimmy Mystery left the group in 2008, married, and settled down in Vancouver. Percy Shroff also withdrew in 2011 and says he's since been rebuilding his life. According to both, they're still coming to terms with the years spent as members of such a controlling sect. And this former member says she's still scarred by her time in the group, and even more so by her exit from it.
You go to Vancouver based on faith, because you know people over there. They become your full social circle. And then overnight, there's nothing.
Do you feel that VRRP betrayed you?
I did. So it did have a very, very devastating effect.
It's clear that it's still very emotional for you.
It is.
This former instructor in the dance company insists you need only hear the prayer at the start of each class to understand the influence of Shiamak Davar on the lives of those around him.
At the end of the prayer, they used to say, "And thank you, Shiamak." And I was like, why are you including Shiamak's name in a prayer? Like, people are folding hands, closing their eyes and saying, "Thank you, Shiamak." Why? I mean, he's not a god, he's not a saint.